Warning, this episode contains brain food that will lead to improved emotional and social intelligence. Thanks for tuning in to Harvesting Happiness today for a healthy serving of consciously prepared brain food. This is Lisa Cypers-Kamen, your host. For more than 13 years, I've been handcrafting these sound ideas for better well-being. Each week, I love spotlighting diverse thinkers and doers who are contemporary trendsetters and change agents, devoting their lives to creating a better world in which to live. I invite you to listen up and change the way you think about human happiness. Our award-winning content is fresh, optimistic, and purpose-driven media that promotes well-being from the inside out. Alrighty then, let's dive in. This episode offers psychosocial education designed to inspire and motivate our listeners. The information provided does not constitute a therapeutic relationship nor a substitute for professional mental health care. If you are experiencing a mental health crisis, call 911, go to your nearest emergency room, or for listeners in the United States, text 988 for the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you are. Thanks for joining me on today's show, where we will talk about mastering pleasure, desire, intimacy, and sexual sovereignty. My guest today is Dr. Saida Desilets, who is an expert on women's sensuality and erotic genius. She focuses on how women can enhance their lives through sensual self-awareness. She writes about vitality, beauty, and pleasure, aiming to help women connect with their natural aliveness. Her book, Emergence of the Sensual Woman, and her contributions to works by Dr. Christiane Northrup and Dr. Rachel Adams have received international recognition. Saida has led seminars globally and is the founder of the Desilets method. She holds a PhD in transpersonal psychology and is renowned for her work. This conversation originally took place in August of 2020, but the subject matter of pleasure as it relates to our hedonistic pursuits never goes out of style. And now more than ever, with the stresses and strains in the world, it's helpful to take a look at this important subject. Now let's get to it.
Hi, Lisa. I'm so excited to be back. This is amazing.
It is. And I'm holding Desire in my hand. And why I say that is because this new book is a smaller pocket edition, and it's beautiful. It has a beautiful, luscious cover, actually. Very, very beautiful. So congratulations on the book. Let's talk about the nature of desire. We all have it.
I want to definitely address the nature of a desire because, it's a subject when you say desire, people leap to certain assumptions about it, like sexuality or chocolate. So in this book, I'm proposing something that I feel hasn't really been said before. And it's looking at how philosophers and religion has had kind of a negative outlook on desire, actually, that desire at the end of the day is a reason for all our human suffering. And what I'm proposing is something completely different, that desire is an emergent evolutionary force of nature that doesn't only impact human beings, it's actually part of life, kind of like gravity is affecting everything here, it's affecting life. And that it is an instigator. It's a force that actually moves action forward. It helps evolution. So that's a little bit what I wanted to say about that initially, because I think we're going to go into some other aspects of desire shortly. And I just want to give you a moment to comment on that. Well,
I think that desire is the kindling of all things. Right?
Yes, it's the instigator, it's the spark, it's the thing that makes nothing become something. So it's really powerful. And unfortunately, it's kind of an ambivalent force. It just is. It exists. It's like moving through all things. And so we can hijack it. And that hijacking process is usually done because of how we're socialized. And so that's part of the book that's really inviting the reader to explore within themselves. Is what I want really what I want? And that's a very important question.
When we talk about the songs of desire, and in your book, you really do approach it from this very lyrical perspective, there are many.
Yes, there are at least 6. There's probably more. I chose for the nature of simplicity and keeping things in a place where we could relate to it. There are 6. There's the most obvious is the desire song of Eros, which is around sexuality. So the natural turn on that we have as human beings. The desire for love is very strong in us. So obviously there's a desire song for love. Procreation is also a really powerful desire to create a family is huge. Then there's the desire for thriving, which we rarely address, but it's really important because it helps us in those really dark and difficult moments to somehow keep going.
Yeah.
So that's a very important one. And then there's the song of rapture, which is really, I think, could be controversial because rarely do we associate religion and spirituality with desire. But I actually think that the calling towards rapture, to know your own version of the divine, is a really powerful calling for people. And it's a very private and intimate calling. And then the last but not least in my book is the desire of contribution. Like, what am I here to leave as a legacy? What am I here to do? How am I contributing? And how vital and essential that is, because when we're not contributing, it's almost like our life ends. And you can see it a little more with elderly people who somehow feel like their worth is no longer valid and they have nothing to contribute. And you can see them start to kind of fold inwardly. And then when you get them to contribute, they start to expand outwardly again. So it's a really powerful force as well.
Desire, desire, desire. It's where it all starts. But let's talk about fulfillment, because the desire is being the spark or the kindling, and then the process of fulfillment.
I love this question. Thank you, Lisa. You're amazing. So fulfillment, think about it. It's the eternal dangling carrot before us, right? We're going for these things. We are willing to go through pain because there's this thing we're going for. And maybe there are multiple things that we're going for. And so what I love to explore is, well, what is that underneath? Because there's a million things we could be going for, but is there a commonality? What's the felt state when we attain fulfillment, when we get that thing that we really want, or we get an experience that we'd really love? And so what is that felt state? And to me, when I really broke it down, it's a feeling of intense aliveness. Right in the moment of fulfillment, whether I get the new car or I get a raise or I get, I don't know, a kiss from my lover, these things, like there's a sense of aliveness in my being for that moment.
Yeah.
Funnily enough, when we are going for hijacked desires, which is the majority of the things we go for, when we attain them, it's a really short-lived fulfillment, if at all. It's kind of like, what? This is it? Like, I thought there was going to be, fireworks or something when I got here, but there's nothing. It's kind of meh. So fulfillment, I started to realize, isn't a point on the map. It's not a end place in the journey. It's a state of being.
Yeah.
And what's beautiful about the shift of awareness from a thing to a state of being is we can cultivate fulfillment as we're going for things.
Yeah.
So that, I feel, is a really powerful change of perspective.
I want to introduce the word euphoria into all of this, because we think of euphoria as that peak experience, that pinnacle experience. And what I'm hearing you say is perhaps it's in the process itself that this state of euphoria or rapture exists.
Absolutely. At least it's the invitation. And I think when we're hyper focused on an end result and we're not in the enjoyment of the unfoldment of the journey, we're robbing ourselves of moments or days or weeks or years of an experience that we could actually be having pretty consistently. And that's just purely conditioning. We don't really learn this at a young age. And so part of this book is to wake us up and invite us into the possibility. It's just a possibility, but it's there. And if we want to attempt it, it's actually not that difficult. as an experience.
And, to take this into the sexual realm and give it a different kind of metaphor, in a sexual encounter, when we're making love with our partner and the focus is solely on the orgasm or the release or the end result, it actually slows down the process.
Yeah, well, sometimes it speeds it up very quickly. But yes, in terms of feeling fulfilled sexually, it's definitely not just the orgasm or like this place we're going to. It's the entire experience, the foreplay, the sensuality, the connection, the surprise. Eros is surprising. So sometimes if we're just open and really present with one another, there's probably things that will emerge that neither person planned. And that's really beautiful.
And then you take that experience into the other dimensions or dominions of our lives.
Yes.
I see this as powerful.
Very powerful. Also because I feel like we're in a time where we're suffering from a lot of apathy. It's intense out there. There's a lot going on. And so it feels pretty natural to shut down to protect ourselves. But apathy is, for a few moments, okay. We need to disengage sometimes. But as a perpetual condition, it's really harmful because our human spirit is meant to have enthusiasm. It's meant to wake up with curiosity and even a little daring. That's how our ancestors did it. That's how we made it here. Yeah. We had to be daring. And so part of the book is also inviting you, saying, hey, this is who you are. Fulfillment can be had now. You have true desires. We could explore those. But in order to do that, in order to break free of hijacked desires, in order to really do that, it takes daring. Because what you're going to have to do is feel your own heart, notice what deeply matters in your heart, and be vulnerable enough to at least admit it to yourself, if no one else. And that can take daring.
Yeah. And well, without any risk, there is absolutely no reward. I mean, it's built into the reward process that there has to be risk. And many of us, like you say, we're shut down. We're on autopilot. Life and the world have gotten so busy that we have cut off that energy, that flow of desire because we don't think we have the time for it.
Absolutely. And we vilified it, right? We're blaming this force for all our misbehaviors. So it's something important to have a look at, because if we vilify part of our nature, then we don't have access to that power. And that is an immense power that can allow us to actually create a life that we're really enjoying living, and a life that when we come to the end of our days, we feel happy about. We're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. I did it. I lived this life.
Yeah. We want to be wrung out. I mean, that's my goal at the end. I want to be like a sponge, completely wrung out.
Yeah.
And then I can go.
Exactly. So we want to get our songs completely sung. We don't want to leave a song unsung. That is something that I feel is very sad.
Oh, how beautifully said. Let's take a break. And when we come back, we'll carry on the conversations with Dr. Saida Desilets. To learn more, please visit www.desirethebook.com. You can also find out more about Saida's work at saidadesilets.com. On Twitter, that handle is Saida Desilets. And of course, on Facebook, it's Dr. Saida Desilets. We are going to take a quick pause and we'll be right back. Hang on, before we take that pause, let's chat about the sizzle of summer and its invitation to indulge in some healthy hedonism, because research has proven that happiness and pleasures of the skin go hand in hand. I know. Sometimes it's hard to feel in the mood when life demands so much of us. Whether it's work, kids, elder care, or other important obligations, finding the time and headspace for mind-boggling pleasure can be a challenge. But one thing is never ending, and that is sexual sovereignty, our right to learn, explore, and care about our intimate well-being. The good news is that with a little curiosity, interest, and effort, more arousing, intimate relations can be yours at any age or stage of life. Today's sponsor, Beducated, has created a judgment-free, sex-positive online platform that has helped tens of thousands of people find their sexual happiness. Beducated has more than 100 online sex and relationship courses led by the world's top experts that will help you master new techniques, reignite the spark, and enjoy more sex with greater confidence and new depths of pleasure. No matter your age, gender, sexual orientation, relationship preference, or sexual experience, Beducated is a safe and discreet, shame-free resource for folks wanting to nurture themselves and spice up their sex lives. Recently, I took a very interesting course entitled The Healing Power of Touch with Dayan Matuka that explores a very sensuous healing modality called de-armoring, designed to help release emotional and physical blockage as well as tension in the body. Whether you want to refine your bedroom skills with titillating tools or be more at home in your own body, visit beducate.me/summer50 to learn more. Spice up your love life today at beducate.me/summer50 and use code happiness to get 50% off the yearly pass. You can even test the waters with a free 24-hour trial. If you're not satisfied, there is a 14-day risk-free money-back guarantee. That's beducate.me/summer50 and code happiness. Now let's take that pause. We'll be right back. Research tells us that happiness is good for our health. Happy people live longer, are more productive, and make better partners, parents, and professionals. Want more sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. One thing I know for certain, happiness waits for no one, and at times we all need a little support. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. And we're back continuing the conversation with Dr. Saida Desilets. We're talking about mastering pleasure, desire, intimacy, and sexual sovereignty. Let's get back to it. Saida, prior to the break, we were talking about all aspects of desire. And I know what comes to many people's mind is desire in the bedroom, but we're actually speaking about desire in every other aspect of our life that may flow into the bedroom.
Absolutely. And it's actually really important because we don't spend the majority of our time in the bedroom. So we want to be alive and deeply switched on in all our moments of life. And that's why I wanted to broaden our awareness of how desire is functioning within our daily moments and our ordinary moments.
And I would say that desire is what fuels everything. We have a desire for pleasure and we have a desire to not experience pain.
Absolutely. And that is a beautiful biological tendency. So even the smallest amoeba will move away from pain and expand towards what feels good. And so that's a very powerful response. And I'm glad you brought it up because when we can see that sometimes we're really simple biological creatures, then we want to start being an inquiry. Well, what does allow me to feel expanded and open? Because that is the state where we thrive. That's the state where all systems work a lot better. The immune system works better. The nervous system, digestive, all our systems are designed to be optimally functioning when we're more in the state of pleasure, at least feeling good. So I'm not referring necessarily to sexual pleasure, but just that feel good feeling.
And that feeling good, I'm going to go a step further, comes from feeling at home in one's body and in one's mind.
Yes. And what I feel really important, one of the invitations of this little book, is I question our ability to really know ourselves. And I invite the reader to spend time, I like this phrase, marinating in their own essence. Because we cannot be the designers and creators and the leaders of our own life journey if we don't know our own essence. We will, unfortunately, be subject to the desires and impulses and ideals of others if we don't know who we are. And so this inquiry is actually very important. And you know what's interesting, Lisa, is a lot of people know what they don't want. They know what they don't like. They know what they hate. But when I say yes, but tell me what you'd love, it's like crickets. And it's not necessarily that people don't know what they love. It's that it's profoundly vulnerable to articulate it.
Yes.
And that vulnerability, I think, is something that we need to lean into, at least in our own private space with ourselves. That's why this I created, actually, to go along with the book, there's a whole series of free videos and some free audio meditations. And one of them, the meditations, is to allow people to really sit in their own hearts and feel what's alive there, and to at least admit it to themselves. That's where the first step of vulnerability is, right? It's with ourselves. Like, oh, wow, could I really allow myself to want that and to feel a little bit of the agony of the possibility that I may never get it, but I am still allowed to desire it. And then that makes it viable. If it exists in my heart, it's viable, even if I don't know the how at this point.
The pregnant with possibility, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Hey, well, we call it the V word around here.
Tell me more. I like it.
We're going to talk about that V word. And they're like, what? The V word? I'm like, yeah, vulnerability. And then the eyes roll, because then the next thing that comes along with that V word is the exploration of the S word, which is shame.
Yes. And it's interesting because shame is a learned experience. And I do speak about shame, especially in the chapter around Eros, because that's where it shows up a lot in our culture, and the uselessness of it. But it's a learned experience. So as we learn shame, then we almost self-shame perpetually. It's like we first learn it externally and then we perpetuate it. And the only way around that is to face it and face the vulnerability and the discomfort, and to allow ourselves to take responsibility that we exist and that we matter and that what's important to our hearts, it's actually essential. And even if it doesn't matter to anyone else, it's okay. It matters to you. And taking a stand for that, Lisa, is something that's really part of my message. Like, we're sovereign beings. We must occupy our space. And when we do that, when we fill out this space that's called us, we can show up in much bigger ways, and we can have impact in ways that we maybe never dreamed of. But whether or not we like it, we are having impact. It's the kind of impact that we have that we can look at. If we don't embody our space, often our impact isn't that pleasant. So when we occupy space, we can start to direct our impact in really creative ways that are actually in harmony with our families and community and life itself.
I want to just go back to something that you said about occupying space, because in working with clients, I work in addiction and trauma recovery for part of my life. And I often encounter, typically they're women, but sometimes they're men as well, who have an eating disorder. And we talk about this occupying of space or occupation of space. And I think you're hitting on something really important. We must occupy. We must have a footprint.
Yes. Absolutely. And what's interesting, Lisa, is this is very old. The need to belong is so ingrained in our systems, all our systems, that if we feel that's under threat, it's like life threatening. Although that's not true anymore, that many individuals can survive without their tribe, for example, we're still interdependent. And so there's this need to belong that then overrides this other stuff. So what happens is, in order to belong, we bargain away things that might be important to us, but now we're belonging, so we feel safe. And that's really important to look at, because overriding things that are really essential to our own nature is dangerous. It's when we disown ourselves. And that's when the psyche is wondering what's happening. The psyche needs the body to be in relationship with it.
Yeah.
So if we're leaving our bodies and we're not in relationship with it, it's very confusing. And that's when a lot of the traumas do happen and addictions do happen. It's like a call back to the body, but in a way that we're a little bit disassociated still in the callback. Mm-hmm. So reassociation, understanding that you belong primarily, first of all, to life. The fact that you're here, you belong, period. There's no even negotiation about that. And when you belong to life instead of a person or a group, it's much bigger. And no one can take that from you. It's here.
Yes. And I would also add that there's worthiness embedded in that. Just because you are means that you are worth.
There's, again, that's non-negotiable, right?
But we don't see that. Many of us
don't.
We don't see that. We disconnect from our worthiness and find ourselves in emotional and spiritual crisis.
Yes. And you know what's interesting? We're a culture that actually thrives on unworthiness. Because if you were to interact with a person who's really confident, fully embodied, totally knows their worth, most of the time they get labeled as arrogant or full of themselves or et cetera, et cetera. And so there's a culture of your misery and my misery, like they like company, they like each other. So we have to break free of that. So that the book looks at how much we're domesticated, how much we live by social mandates.
Yeah.
And how to free ourselves of that without needing to create tremendous amount of chaos. There is a graciousness and a beauty when we can simply come home to ourselves through the act of saying, you know what? I don't feel it right now, but I'm going to choose that it's true that I matter, that my voice matters, the space that I am matters, and the thing that lives in my heart that's scaring the living crap out of me, that also matters.
And what is that? Let's put a little light on this. Like, we're not going to melt. We're not going to die if we let a little light in to see what that thing is.
Absolutely.
And that goes back to the desire and the fear of our own desire, or the immensity of our want.
Yes. And so I think what happens is, because we've been so in denial of this powerful force and basically told that it's something scary and big, which it can be. It really can. It can overtake you sometimes. But when you start having a healthier relationship with this part of yourself, it's like a maturity process happens. And now you realize, I just have to worry about the next obvious step. And I don't have to force my way through life. I can actually have a listening aspect where I'm listening, like, here's what I'm going for. What's obvious? Oh, what's obvious is I need to actually meet somebody, or I need to sleep, or I need to whatever. And you do the obvious thing. What we tend to do is we go for something and we think it should be here now. And then we're looking so far ahead that it just feels impossible.
Oh.
And we're not doing what's obvious. So our life, I feel, Lisa, that we're guided by a prime directive in our essence. So when we come back, we start to listen, it's not going to be all revealed at once. Desire is the way, it's like the visceral voice of your own soul's calling. And what will become obvious is a simple thing. And you do that, and then the next simple thing. And that's how life unfolds. It's a beautiful unfolding mystery that we get to play with.
Yeah, I agree. Dr. Saida Desilets, thank you for coming to hang out with me and share your new book, Desire, exploring the daring topic of turning our attention towards our true desires can open up the doors to live life on our own terms. So that ripe, juicy subject of desire is so much more than what goes on between our legs.
Absolutely. And thank you, Lisa. You're such an incredible woman, and I just love your curiosity and passion.
Oh, thank you. To learn more, please visit www.desirethebook.com. You can also find Saida at www.saidadesilets.com, on Twitter at Saida Desilets, and on Facebook, Dr. Saida Desilets. Thanks for joining us on Harvesting Happiness today. This is Lisa Cypers-Kamen on behalf of my guest, Dr. Saida Desilets, wishing you kind thoughts, kinder words, and the kindest of actions. Until next time, remember, happiness is an inside job. Happiness is your inside job. Please go out and rock your day, and remember to be kind to one another. Want to take a deeper dive into sound ideas for better well-being? Check out our new bonus edition content, More Mental Fitness by Harvesting Happiness, available exclusively on Medium and Substack. Keep harvesting your own happiness anytime, anywhere from the comfort of wherever you are. Subscribe, listen, and share hundreds of downloadable episodes from wherever you get your podcasts. Connect with and follow us on most social media channels. To learn more about lifestyle management and mental fitness consulting services, please visit harvestinghappiness.com. Harvesting Happiness and More Mental Fitness are produced by me, Lisa Cypers-Kamen, Andrea Mengele, Robin Boyd, Andrea Daly, and the awesome team at Podfly Productions, including Eric Begay, Kimberly Beck, and Alec Guess, in collaboration with TogiNet Radio, KBUU, RadioMalibu.net, and is available on PRX, the Public Radio Exchange.